Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Davida and welcome back to another episode of Vlog with Davida. Today we are going to be talking about genocide in Nigeria. Without further ado, let's get started. Imagine waking up one morning to find your church completely burned to the ground or armed men storming into your village during Sunday worship. Imagine losing your friends, your home, your pastor, your family, or even your entire community overnight. Not because of something you did, but because of your religion. Today, we are talking about the ongoing violence against Christians in Nigeria, a crisis that many activists, religious freedom groups, and lawmakers are beginning to call a genocide. In today's episode, I am going to break down the facts, the people responsible, the legal definition of a genocide, the statistics coming out of Nigeria in 2026, and why so many world leaders continue to stay silent. Because whether the world acknowledges it or not, innocent people are dying. Let's get started. Before we get into the violence itself, we need to understand Nigeria. Nigeria is Africa's most populated country with over 230 million people. Religiously, the country has been split roughly down the middle, but currently has a predominantly Muslim north and a predominantly Christian south. Between those regions is known as the Middle Belt. The exact split for 2026, 53% Muslim and 47% Christian. The Middle Belt has become one of the most dangerous areas in the country and is one of the central locations where attacks against Christian communities have escalated. For years, Nigeria has struggled with terrorism, corruption, poverty, political instability, weak security systems, and extremist violence. I covered this in more depth in my previous YouTube video, which I will put right here, and I will also link up above. If you watched it, you already know the complex conflicts and how complex this region can become. If not, I advise you to go watch it and come right back to this video. But today, we are specifically focusing on the targeted killing of Christians. Now, before we start throwing around the word genocide, we need to define it correctly. Under the United Nations Convention Group, genocide is defined as acts committed with the intent to destroy, fully or partially, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. It is one of the most serious crimes under international law. Several extremist and military groups have been connected to the attacks against Christian communities in Nigeria. The first and most infamous one is Boko Haram. Boko Haram is an Islamist terrorist group founded in 2002 by Muhammad Yusuf. The group initially launched its violent insurgence in 2009. Its name is often translated as Western education is forbidden. Boko Haram seeks to establish a radical Islamic state and has become globally known for its mass killings, church bombings, kidnaps, village raids, and attacks on everyday civilians. The group gained international attention after kidnapping 276 schoolgirls in 2014. Many of those girls never returned alive. Over the past 15 years, Boko Haram's insurgency has displaced millions of people across Nigeria and neighboring countries. The group later splintered, leading to the rise of ISIS West Africa Province, also known as ISWAP. ISWAP is still affiliated with ISIS and remains one of the most deadliest extremist organizations operating in West Africa today. The group has carried out attacks on churches, villages, military targets, schools, and Christian farming communities. In 2026, Nigeria and U.S. armed forces carried out a joint counterterrorism attack that killed Abu Bilal, a senior ISIS-linked operating leader in West Africa. Nigerian officials described the operation as a major breakthrough and a big win against extremist networks in the region. But despite many military operations and arrests, attacks on Christians have continued. The human cost of this violence has been devastating. Entire church communities have been displaced and churches have been burned to the ground. Families have been forced into refugee camps and pastors and priests have been kidnapped and murdered. Children have been growing up surrounded by violence and fear, and the statistics are staggering. According to Open Doors World Watch 2026 list, 4,849 Christians were killed for their faith in Nigeria in just one reporting year. That means Nigeria accounted for approximately 72% of all documented Christian killings worldwide. Other organizations report even higher numbers, and that goes without saying. There are many countries that have not been documented due to the remoteness of the areas that they are in. Some advocacy groups estimate that tens of thousands of Christians have been killed in Nigeria over the last 2 decades. In 2025 alone, reports documented that repeated mass attacks on Christian villages during church services, funerals, and religious celebrations. Violence is not limited to killings. Kidnappings have become a major tactic used by these armed groups, and in January 2026, reports indicated that more than 160 worshipers were abducted during their church services in Kaduna State. Religious leaders say that kidnappings have become a tool of terror that leaves the entire community living in fear. Entire villages like Plateau State, Benue State, Kaduna State, and Borno State have been reportedly attacked. Thousands of Christians have also been reportedly abducted over the years, including women, children, priests, and pastors, and the survivors say they feel abandoned by both their government and the international community because no one is doing or saying anything about it. Silence has consequences because when atrocities like these are long enough ignored, people begin to normalize them. From a legal and human rights perspective, major questions remain. Why have these attacks continued for so many years? Why do so many Christian communities feel unprotected and unsafe in their daily abodes? Why has the international response been so limited? Human rights organizations have repeatedly criticized Nigerian authorities for failing to adequately protect vulnerable Christian communities in heavily targeted regions. And activists argue that the world leaders have not treated this crisis with the urgency that it deserves. Critics also called out international institutions, Western governments, and major media organizations for what they describe as selective outrage. Because if thousands of Christians were repeatedly being massacred anywhere else in the world, many believe that the global reaction would have been significantly different. And in 2026, this violence has continued. This year described Palm Sunday attacks in a predominantly Christian community that killed over 60 people. Other attacks reportedly targeted villages on Easter Sunday and Holy Week celebrations that killed over 150 people. 150 people can't even fit into a school bus. One other place reported that an attack on Plateau State, an entire Christian community, was forced to flee in overnight coordinated raids that killed more than 150 people and kidnapped over 70. This list goes on, and this video could go on forever. Multiple churches that weekend were reportedly destroyed, and while Nigerian authorities announced the conviction of over 400 terrorism suspects linked to Boko Haram and ISIS-linked groups, many Christians across Nigeria still say they feel unsafe, and rightfully so. Thousands of people remain displaced in northern and central Nigeria due to extremist violence, and for families, that fear is no longer temporary. It has become a daily lifestyle. You do not have to be Nigerian to care about this, and you don't even have to be Christian to believe that innocent people should not be murdered, kidnapped, or driven from their homes because of their faith. That is just what it takes to be human. This issue deserves way more attention than it is receiving currently, and it does not require choosing political sides because human lives matter much more than red and blue ever will. Whether history labels this as a genocide, religious persecution, terrorism, or all three, innocent Christians are dying. And ignoring suffering because it is politically polarizing is still ignoring suffering. Alright everyone, that is it for today's video. My name is Davida and Jesus loves y'all. Stay tuned for the next one. God bless.